Bernie Ecclestone was toppled from his position last week as boss of Formula One racing as part of Liberty Media's takeover of Formula One. Jeremy Clarkson said this of Bernie Ecclestone, something which others have also commented upon and have said the same kind of thing. Quote, "When Bernie agrees to do something, you shake hands and he always sticks to the deal." I was listening to one person who'd worked with him a lot on the radio, and he said he never had anything in writing. He said, if you produce a contract in writing, I'll find some way to get round it. But if we can agree everything here and shake hands on it, I'll stick to it. And apparently, even people who weren't that much for Bernie Ecclestone agree with Clarkson that he would stick to the deal. Trust is important in business, isn't it? And speaking of Formula One, you could say that trust is important in sport. Think of the doping scandals that have taken place. Is it how many Russian Olympiads who won medals? All the talk is that there'd been a lot of doping going on. Think of cycling and all of the problems that have arisen there. So trust is important in business. Trust is important in the world of sport. Trust is important, of course, in marriage and in family. If trust breaks down in a marriage, that may often be the prelude to the breakdown of the marriage. And think of parents with teenage children in days of internet pornography and when illegal drugs are easily available for people in the comprehensive school. And maybe a parent gets to be a bit worried. And trust is so important there, isn't it? What are you looking at on the computer? Why are you behaving as you are, locking yourself in your room? Is there something sinister going on? That can be a fraught time, can't it, for parents of teenage children. And trust, of course, is important in the world of politics. And that is the context in which the post-truth term has been coined. We were away, of course, on sabbatical when the vote took place on the EU referendum, and we were heartily glad to be out of it all. But we did follow things on the internet, and of course what was going on, both sides were making the most unreal claims, playing on people's feelings one way or another, fearing that if you come out this is what will happen, fearing if you stay in this is what will happen. And so I've learned that the Oxford English Dictionary has voted post-truth to be the word of 2016. But of course, although the term is new, post-truth has been around for a very, very long period of time. The Bible's teaching is that evil entered into the world as a result of post-truth, as a result of someone believing a lie, having her feelings played upon, having her desires played upon, so that what was factually true was relegated because what made her feel good was what really mattered. And so she was deceived. And the Bible traces all the evil in the world back to that context of a first man and a first woman where things went horribly wrong. In fact, the Bible's got some fairly stark language to use. Tucked away in one of the lesser known parts of the Bible, at a time when things were obviously very, very grim in the land of Judah, the prophet Micah said these words, "Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend." What about this? "Even with her who lies in your embrace. Be careful of your words. For a son dishonors his father. A daughter rises up against her mother. A daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A person's enemies are the members of their own household." And centuries later, Jesus Christ said something very similar about family members betraying other family members. So whom can we trust in a post-truth world? And I want to say, on the basis of the Bible's total teaching, that in an absolute, total sense of the word, you cannot trust any mere human being. Full stop. Does that shock you? Does that alarm you? I'm going to try to make good that claim. I'm going to hold before you 3 characters from the Bible to demonstrate the rightness of the claim that the Bible says in an absolute, utter sense, we're not to put trust in any mere human being. Let's begin on the lowest rung of the ladder, and we're going to go up the scale. Let's begin with a character called Judas. Judas was one of the 12 who went around with Jesus Christ, and many of you, most of you, are going to be familiar with this, but it's possible that some of you aren't, so let me just spell out the details. That Jesus had 12 intimate followers, 11 of whom were the real ticket, but one of whom was not. Judas, who was called Iscariot. And of course, his name has passed into the English language, hasn't it? He's a real Judas, someone will say of somebody who's betrayed a person. But now this is the interesting thing. Although those 12 disciples went around, they ate together, they traveled together, they were in each other's company for a 3-year period, they would have known each other pretty well and pretty intimately, not one of the disciples ever twigged that Judas was a phony, was a fake. He was counterfeit. He was a thief as well. But none of them, it's quite clear as you read the 4 Gospels, none of them twigged. It's a little bit like having a counterfeit £10 note. And it goes through lots of banks and it's investigated by people who are really skilled at investigating counterfeits. And they all say of this counterfeit note, it's genuine, it's genuine. Only one person knew all along that Judas was not the real thing, and that was Jesus Christ. It's a little bit like taking the counterfeit £10 note, and nobody can see that it's fake, but the Queen gets hold of it one day and she says, this isn't really my picture on here. There's a detail that's just wrong. This is counterfeit. And Jesus saw what none of the other disciples, what nobody else could see. He could see right into the very heart of Judas. And of course, he can do that, and he does do it with each of us here tonight. He has, if I can put it like this, X-ray vision. He can X-ray our very soul. He knows us through and through. In fact, at one point in the New Testament, when it speaks of people who were trusting Jesus, it looked as if they really were, but in fact they weren't. It then says, but Jesus did not entrust himself to them, for he knew what was in the heart of people. He didn't need anyone to tell him what was in the heart of people. So Judas, yes, post-truth. Don't put trust in people because they may turn out to be like Judas. Let me say something really scary. The person sitting next to you could be like that. Don't all look around at each other now. Do not put trust in any mere human being. Let's go up the ladder. Do not put trust in yourself. Do not put trust in yourself. Because we'll deal now with a very different character. Someone who was not a fake, who was not a phony, who really was genuine. His name, Simon Peter. One of the most lovable characters in the Bible. He comes alive, doesn't he? As you read through the Bible, certain characters seem to jump off the pages. Let me just give an example. If you go through your Old Testament, you read about a man called Isaac. And he's not a flat character, but you don't learn that much about him. Then he's got a son called Jacob, and Jacob sort of jumps off the pages of the Bible, and you learn so much about this character and his personality. Now, you've got that with this man called Simon Peter. He was earnest, he was ardent, he was sincere, he was genuine. And he was the man who made great claims, and he meant those claims. So one day he said to Jesus, look, if all these disciples were to fail you, you can depend on me. I'm the man. I really believe he meant that. I think the way the story is told, the narrative unfolds, he was genuine in his belief that he was dependable. He genuinely believed if all the others failed, he would not. His problem was he was trusting himself, and he shouldn't have. He didn't know himself. He didn't know the depths of evil that can still reside even in the lives of those who are true followers of Jesus. He didn't know himself sufficiently well. Nor did he take sufficiently seriously what Jesus warned him of, that there's a real devil. And therefore the power of evil, even within a true disciple such as Peter, worked on by the devil, could mean that Peter, though he meant well, would not be able to deliver on his promise. And Jesus again was able to see to the heart of the matter. No, Peter, you say that you're going to do all these things, but I'm telling you now that before this night is out, you are going to deny 3 times that you ever knew me. No, that will never happen. But Jesus got it right. And Peter got it wrong. Do you know yourself? I said, don't trust the person sitting next to you, but it gets a lot closer than that. Don't trust yourself. Don't trust yourself. Because there's evil, even in those who are genuine, sincere followers of Jesus. Let's go up the ladder to my third example, Paul, this man we read of in the Bible. Now, he was writing to some people in the ancient city of Corinth, and he was telling them about his travel plans and when he was going to visit them. But having written, because of circumstances, things he was aware of, and as he reflected upon changed circumstances, he thought, no, it won't be good for me to call and visit them when I said, I'll visit them at a different point. And they said, you can't depend on this man. He's a yes, yes, no, no man. And he has to write back to them, he wasn't a yes, no man. He was a genuine man, but circumstances could change, and his knowledge of the situation and of circumstances was not total, and therefore, for good reasons, he changed his plans, but that still left them feeling he's let us down. That can happen to us, can't it? We can genuinely want to do something, and we have the moral strength at that point to deliver. But circumstances, was it, as we've been thinking about post-truth and politics, was it Harold Macmillan? I'm giving my age away here, aren't I? When he was once asked, he was British Prime Minister, what do you fear most in political life? Events, dear boy, events. You just can't control events. Have we got an ice? Well, I say, have we got? Where's Becky Pickett? Have you got? She's the only American here tonight. Have you got an isolationist president? Of course, President Bush was isolationist, and then 9/11 happened. And that changed everything for him, didn't it? In other words, in an absolute sense, obviously we've got to trust. Bernie Ecclestone kept his words. Lots of people keep their words in business. Lots of people are genuine sports people and don't go in for doping. Lots of people are faithful in their marriages. Lots of teenagers can be relied on by their parents. But in an absolute ultimate sense, every single one of us is vulnerable. So whom do we trust in a post-truth world? We need someone who is absolutely true and trustworthy. Like a chemical element that is pure all the way through, without any impurity, not even 0.00001% to contaminate that element. It is pure. We need someone like that, don't we? And Jesus Christ said that he was that. He made a stupendous claim when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not just I'm true, I'm the truth. I'm the blueprint for it all, he says. I'm the prototype. I'm truth itself. And because I'm truth itself, you can trust me. He's faithfulness itself, and therefore he will not fail us. Have you been let down by people? Have you been let down? What did those words from the prophet Micah say? Where he says a person's enemies are the enemies of their own household. Has that happened to you? Have you felt betrayed by a child, by a parent, a brother, a sister, a spouse? And you think, can I ever trust anybody? And Jesus says you can put absolute, total trust in me. Some bridges get closed every so often, don't they? They're inspected by the civil engineers and they realise, hang on, this bridge needs perhaps some kind of reinforcing. It's not going to be able to take the load. Jesus Christ can take the load of the entire human race, putting total, complete trust in him. His promises will never fail. Have you ever signed up for some deal? And then these marvellous promises, and then there's the little, small print. I don't know if you were like me, I always look for the asterisks. And then, where is the asterisk? And often you find it not on the same page, you've got to go to the other page. And you've got to go to the bottom of the page, and there it is in minuscule writing, and when you read it, all the promises are on the front page in bold type. The rug is pulled away by what's in the asterisk, and so the paper gets flung in the bin, and the deal isn't signed. Well, Jesus Christ doesn't put any asterisks to his promises. There are no let-out clauses. None at all. You can trust his promises. Come to me, he says, everyone who's labouring and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. He really will. He won't give you a trouble-free life, but he'll give you peace. He'll give you forgiveness of sins. He really delivers on his promises. And where things may be tough in following him, he's open about that. If anyone will follow me, he says they must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. But he says if you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. It's a great promise. You can depend on his teaching. He said one day, heaven and earth will pass away. My words will never pass away. Think of the things that can pass away. We're in a changing world, aren't we? Everything is rapidly changing. Listen, he says, my words will never pass away. Now, he said that 2,000 years ago in the Middle East, and here we are in Bridgend tonight, considering his words. And over in China, someone who works in China was speaking in the church last Tuesday, and over in China there are millions of people studying his words today. Isn't that extraordinary? Not just studying them, as somebody might study the writings of some ancient writer, but living by them, depending upon them, dying by them. For he who dies believing dies safely in your love. We need someone who'll never quit. People can promise, I'll stay with you, but they quit. They quit. I read a very moving thing in the last 10 days. Many of you will know the person of whom I'm speaking. His wife has now got dementia. She's in a home. And he visits her every single day, and she lives about 5 miles away in this home from where he lives. And he visits her every single day from midday until it's time to go home and go to bed at night. Well, that's commitment, isn't it? When he took that vow in sickness and in health, that's terrific, isn't it? Jesus never quits. I have a friend, and I remember in his room years ago, he had this poster of an American football player who'd obviously had a bit of a battering. And there he was, sat on the sidelines, head bowed, looking in a state of total exhaustion, and underneath in big bold letters were the words, I quit. And then to the side of it, there was a cross. And beside that were written the words, I didn't. Jesus Christ. It had a tremendous impact on me. Everyone who went into this room, Christian and unchristian, looked at that. It made a real impact. Jesus doesn't quit. You trust, you put your trust in him. He'll stay with you through life. He'll stay with you through all the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the good times, the bad times. When you're without lots of people, when you're on your own, when the going is good, when the going is tough. He's absolutely trustworthy. That's what Christianity is about. People have all kinds of strange ideas of Christianity, don't they? They think that Christianity is about people who go around the world with a moral microscope, ready to pounce on anyone for doing anything wrong. What a travesty. Christians are people who know they've gone wrong. People are Christians who realize, well, there is a power of evil, but I've placed my trust in Jesus Christ and he'll never fail me. It's about a personal relationship. It's not about ideas. It's not about having a big IQ. It's about trusting a real person who's absolutely trustworthy. Let me say the last thing. We need to trust someone who isn't going to be fazed by events. Harold Macmillan? Events, dear boy, that's what I fear. George Bush? President of the most powerful nation in the world? Yes, but when planes fly into the Twin Towers, suddenly all his foreign policy or non-foreign policy has to be reworked. Paul has to change his plans. But here you are trusting someone who says, all authority in heaven and in earth has been given to me. Well, that's great, isn't it? Trusting someone who's got total, absolute authority. That's better than trusting Mrs. May or President Trump or Putin or anyone. Because how much authority have they really got? I was seeing something the other day that about the president of North Korea. How much authority has he got with the people who are around him who may be manipulating him? But circumstances, do you remember some years ago, a volcano erupted? Was it in Iceland? And was it the Polish president? I think, I may have some of the details wrong, but I think it was Poland or one of those Eastern European countries. There'd been a plane crash, and was it the president had died, and a number had died? And of course, all these world leaders couldn't get to the funeral. Why? Because all of this ash in the sky was stopping planes flying. But Jesus has got all authority in heaven and on earth. Whom can I trust in a post-truth world? In the final absolute sense, the only person you can trust is Jesus. Because even if somebody else is totally trustworthy through life, they cannot travel with you through death into eternity. They have to say goodbye at that point. You're on your own. I'm on my own. And yet, if we are Christ's, we won't be on our own. Let me go back to what Micah says and read the end of the quote. Do not trust a neighbour, put no confidence in a friend. Even with her who lies in your embrace, be careful of your words, for a son dishonours his father, a daughter rises up against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A person's enemies are the enemies of their own household. But as for me, I watch in hope for the Lord. I wait for God, my Saviour. My God will hear me. Is Jesus your God? He can become your God. He is God. He is God. He can become yours tonight. And what you have to do is get aside on your own. Don't be pressurized by any people. Don't be pressurized by me. Don't be pressurized by the person sitting next to you. Get aside on your own and say, Lord Jesus, you are the really trustworthy person. And in this post-truth world, I want to put my trust in you for life, for death, for time, for eternity. Take me as I am. Take me and receive me as I am. And he will. Put your life in his hands and you'll be his forever. And he will never, ever disappoint your trust. I'll pray. After I've prayed, there'll be refreshments, Sean, there's coffee there, and then we can have a time for questions and answers then, after you've had a coffee and a bite of cake. But I'll pray now, and then perhaps in about 15 minutes we'll come back for questions. We thank you, O Lord, that you are trustworthy. You are absolutely trustworthy. And though the earth were to remove, though the heavens were to fall in, your words will remain absolutely trustworthy. And we thank you for this. We thank you, O Lord, for those who prove trustworthy in life, in business, in sport, in marriage, in family, in politics. But in an absolute sense, O Lord, you are the only one we can trust. You are the only one who can be with us when we die. You are the only one who can be with us into eternity. Help us then, O Lord, each one of us, to trust you, the supremely trustworthy being. Amen.